Ethan Cole wiped the sweat from his forehead. The sun beat down on the landfill like a giant oven, making everything shimmer and dance in the heat. Mountains of garbage stretched out in every direction. Old furniture, broken toys, plastic bags, and things too gross to even think about.
This was his job.
Every day, Ethan drove his truck through these hills of trash, moving things around, making sure everything went to the right place. Most people wrinkled their noses when he told them what he did for a living. But Ethan didn't mind. Someone had to do it. Someone had to take care of what everyone else threw away. Just another Tuesday, he muttered to himself, climbing down from his truck. But it wasn't just another Tuesday. As Ethan walked past a fresh pile of garbage that had been dumped that morning, something caught his eye. Something that didn't belong. Among the rotting food and broken bottles, there was something shiny. Something black. Something that looked expensive and clean. A coffin. Ethan stopped in his tracks. His heart started beating faster. In all his years working at the landfill, he had seen weird things. He'd found old wedding dresses, stuffed animals, even a fake leg once. But never a coffin. He walked closer, his boots crunching on broken glass and plastic. The coffin was beautiful, polished black wood that reflected the sunlight like a dark mirror. It had silver handles on the sides that gleamed and sparkled. There wasn't a single scratch on it. No dirt. No dents. Why would anyone throw this away? Ethan whispered. Then he noticed something else. Something that made his stomach twist into a knot. There were drag marks in the dirt, fresh drag marks, leading right up to where the coffin lay. Someone had dragged it here. Recently. Maybe even this morning. Ethan's hands started to shake. He took another step closer. The coffin lid was closed tight, sealed with shiny brass latches. And then he heard it.
Tap, tap, tap.
The sound was so soft that Ethan thought he imagined it. He held his breath and listened harder.
Tap, tap, tap.
It was coming from inside the coffin. No, Ethan breathed. No, no, no. His mind raced. Maybe it was just the metal expanding in the heat. Maybe it was rats that had crawled inside somehow. Maybe it was anything except what his heart was screaming at him. Someone was inside. Someone was alive. Ethan grabbed his radio with trembling fingers. Dispatch. This is Ethan at Sector 7. I need help. I need police. His voice cracked. I need an ambulance. Right now. The dispatcher's voice crackled back. Ethan, what's wrong? Are you hurt? There's a coffin. In the garbage. And I think, he pressed his ear against the lid. The tapping came again, weaker this time. Someone's inside. Someone's alive inside. Stay where you are. Help is coming. Don't open it. But Ethan couldn't wait. What if there wasn't enough air? What if the person inside was dying right now while he stood here doing nothing? He ran back to his truck and grabbed a flat iron bar from the toolbox. His hands were shaking so badly, he almost dropped it twice. When he got back to the coffin, he wedged the bar under the lid. Hold on, he said, even though he didn't know if anyone could hear him. Just hold on. I'm getting you out. The latches were stuck tight. Ethan pulled and pulled, his muscles burning, sweat pouring down his face. The heat was unbearable. The smell of rotting garbage made him want to throw up. But he kept pulling. With a loud crack, the first latch broke free. Then the second. Then the third. Ethan threw the bar aside and grabbed the lid with both hands. He took a deep breath, this was it, and pulled it open. Inside lay an old woman. She was so pale she looked like she was made of snow. Her white hair spread across the coffin's satin lining like spider webs. She wore a thin hospital gown, the kind with little blue patterns on it. Her eyes were closed. Her lips were dry and cracked. For a terrible second, Ethan thought he was too late. But then her chest moved. Just a tiny bit. Up and down. Up and down. She was breathing. Ma'am? Ethan's voice shook. Ma'am, can you hear me? The woman's eyelids fluttered, but didn't open. Her fingers twitched slightly. On her wrist was a plastic hospital bracelet with writing on it. Ethan leaned closer and read it. Ruth Hale. Age 76. Mercy General Hospital. Ruth. Her name was Ruth. Ruth. Ethan said louder. Ruth, I'm here. You're safe now. Help is coming. In the distance, he could hear sirens. They sounded so far away. Too far away. Ruth's breathing was shallow and slow. Her skin felt cold even though the sun was blazing hot. Ethan knew that wasn't good. He'd seen enough movies to know that cold skin meant something was very wrong. He pulled off his work vest and bunched it up, sliding it gently under Ruth's head like a pillow. She was so light, so fragile. Like she might break if he touched her too hard. Stay with me, Ruth, Ethan begged. Don't you dare give up. The ambulance is almost here. But the sirens still sounded far away. Ethan grabbed Ruth's hand. It was small and bony and cold. He squeezed it gently. I've got a little girl, he told her, even though he didn't know if she could hear. Her name is Lily. She's 8 years old. She likes butterflies and strawberry ice cream. And you know what she always asks me? She asks, Daddy, why do people throw things away? And I tell her, because they don't need them anymore. A tear rolled down Ethan's cheek. But you're not trash, Ruth. You're not something to throw away. You're somebody's mother. Somebody's grandmother, maybe. You matter. Do you hear me? You matter. Ruth's fingers twitched in his hand. Just the tiniest movement. But it was enough. The sirens were getting louder now. That's right, Ethan said, his voice breaking. You hold on. Just a little bit longer. They're coming. We're going to save you. And somewhere deep inside that broken, discarded coffin, Ruth Hale kept breathing. The ambulance came screaming through the landfill gates, its red and white lights flashing like fireworks. Right behind it were 2 police cars, their sirens adding to the noise. Ethan had never been so happy to hear such a loud, terrible sound in his entire life. Over here, he shouted, waving his arms. Hurry! The paramedics jumped out before their vehicle even stopped completely. A woman with dark hair tied back in a ponytail ran toward Ethan carrying a big medical bag. A man followed close behind, pushing a stretcher that bounced over the uneven ground. What do we have? The woman asked, dropping to her knees beside the coffin. Her name is Ruth, Ethan said quickly. Ruth Hale. I found her maybe 10 minutes ago. She's breathing but barely. Her skin is really cold. The female paramedic pressed her fingers against Ruth's neck, checking for a pulse. She's alive, but she's in bad shape. Probable dehydration. Possible shock. She looked up at her partner. Let's get IN4 started.
Now.
They worked fast, their hands moving like they'd done this 1,000 times before. The man wrapped a blood pressure cuff around Ruth's thin arm while the woman started poking her with needles, hooking up bags of clear liquid that would drip medicine into Ruth's veins. Ethan stepped back, giving them room to work. His legs felt wobbly. His whole body was shaking. Now that help was here, now that he didn't have to be strong anymore, everything hit him at once. He had just pulled a living person out of a coffin. Out of a coffin. In a garbage dump. Who does that? Who puts an old woman in a coffin and throws her away like she's an empty milk carton? Sir? A police officer appeared at Ethan's elbow. He was young, maybe in his 20s, with a concerned look on his face. I'm Officer Martinez. Can you tell me exactly what happened? Ethan took a shaky breath and explained everything. The shiny black coffin that didn't belong. The drag marks in the dirt. The tapping sound. Opening the lid and finding Ruth inside. Officer Martinez wrote everything down in a small notebook. His partner, an older woman with gray streaks in her hair, was circling the coffin with yellow police tape, making sure nobody touched anything. This is officially a crime scene, the older officer said. Her name tag read Detective Parker. She crouched down next to the coffin, examining it carefully without touching anything. Look at this. No dirt on the outside. The wood isn't scratched. This coffin is brand new. And look here, Officer Martinez added, pointing at something inside the coffin's lid. There are scratch marks. Fresh ones. Like fingernails clawing at the wood. Ethan felt sick. Ruth had been awake. She had been trapped in there, in the dark, scratching and tapping, trying to get out. How long had she been in there? Hours? All night? We need to find out where this coffin came from, Detective Parker said. She pulled out her phone and started taking pictures. And we need to find out who dumped it here. The paramedics were lifting Ruth onto the stretcher now, moving her carefully, like she was made of glass. The woman tucked warm blankets around Ruth's body, trying to get her temperature back to normal. Is she going to be okay? Ethan asked. The paramedic looked at him with kind eyes. You saved her life. If you'd waited even another hour, we'd be looking at a very different situation. She's dehydrated and weak, but she's stable now. We're taking her to Mercy General. Mercy General, Ethan repeated. That's what her bracelet said. She came from there. Detective Parker's head snapped up. She has a hospital bracelet? Yes, Ethan said. On her wrist. The detective walked over to the stretcher and gently lifted Ruth's arm, reading the bracelet. Her face went dark. This says she was discharged yesterday. Yesterday. Someone took her from the hospital and put her in a coffin less than 24 hours later. Officer Martinez looked confused. Maybe there was a mistake? Maybe the funeral home thought she was dead. In a hospital gown? Detective Parker shook her head. No funeral home would bury someone in a hospital gown. And look at this coffin. It's expensive. Maybe $5,000 or $6,000. You don't spend that kind of money and then dump it in a landfill. Unless what? Ethan asked. Unless you're trying to hide something. The paramedics loaded Ruth into the ambulance. Before they closed the doors, Ethan ran over. Ruth, he said softly. I don't know if you can hear me, but you're going to be okay now. You're safe. For just a second, Ruth's eyes flickered open. They were blue, pale blue, like the sky on a winter morning. She looked right at Ethan. Her lips moved, trying to form words, but no sound came out. Then her eyes closed again. The ambulance doors slammed shut, and they drove away, sirens wailing. Ethan stood there in the hot sun, surrounded by garbage and police officers, feeling like his heart had been torn in half. He didn't even know this woman. But somehow, holding her hand, promising she mattered, it had changed something inside him. Mr. Cole, Detective Parker was looking at him strangely. You did a brave thing today. Policy says you should have waited for professionals. But I'm glad you didn't. Because that woman would be dead if you had followed the rules. Ethan nodded. He couldn't find words. We're going to need you to come down to the station later to give a full statement, the detective continued. But right now, I have a crime to investigate. She turned back to the coffin. Officer Martinez was using his phone to take pictures of every angle. Other officers had arrived and were searching the area, looking for clues. Detective, one of them called out. He was holding a piece of paper he'd found near the coffin. You need to see this. Detective Parker took the paper carefully, holding it by the edges. Her eyes went wide as she read it. What is it? Ethan asked. Cremation paperwork, she said quietly. Signed and dated yesterday. It says Ruth Hale was cremated at Peaceful Rest Funeral Home at 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Ethan's blood ran cold. But she's alive. She was never cremated. Exactly. Detective Parker's voice was hard as stone. Someone forged these documents. Someone wanted everyone to think Ruth was dead and cremated. But instead, they put her in this coffin and dumped her here. Why? Ethan whispered. Why would anyone do that? That's what I'm going to find out. The detective pulled out her radio. Dispatch, I need all information on Ruth Hale, age 76, last known address connected to Mercy General Hospital. I also need contact information for Peaceful Rest Funeral Home. And give me a warrant. We're treating this as attempted murder. Attempted murder. The words hung in the air like smoke. Someone had tried to kill Ruth. Not with a gun or a knife, but by burying her alive and throwing her away with the trash. Ethan looked around at the mountains of garbage, at all the broken, unwanted things that people had thrown away. And he thought about his little girl Lily and her question, why do people throw things away? Because they don't need them anymore, he had always said. But Ruth wasn't a thing. She was a person, a human being with a name and a history, and people who should have loved her. And someone had decided she was garbage. Detective Parker put her hand on Ethan's shoulder. Go home, Mr. Cole. Be with your family. We'll call you if we need anything else. But Ethan shook his head. I want to know what happens. I want to know who did this. The detective studied his face for a long moment. Then she nodded. I'll keep you informed. I promise. As Ethan walked back to his truck, he looked up at the sky. The sun was still blazing hot. The garbage was still piled high. Everything looked the same. But nothing was the same. Because today, Ethan Cole had found a woman thrown away like trash. And tomorrow someone was going to pay for it. 3 days later, Ethan's phone rang while he was eating breakfast with Lily. Mr. Cole? This is Detective Parker. We got them. Ethan's heart jumped. Got who? The people who tried to kill Ruth Hale. Can you come down to the station? I think you deserve to hear this story. 40 minutes later, Ethan sat in a small room at the police station, a cup of coffee growing cold in his hands. Detective Parker sat across from him, a thick folder spread out on the table between them. Ruth Hale is doing much better, the detective began. She's awake, talking, and she told us everything. So, what happened? Ethan leaned forward. Who did this to her? Detective Parker's face was grim. Her son-in-law, Marcus Webb, and the owner of Peaceful Rest Funeral Home, a man named Donald Crane. Ethan felt his stomach twist. Her own family? It gets worse. The detective opened the folder and pulled out several papers. Ruth's husband died 2 years ago and left her a lot of money. Almost $500,000, plus a life insurance policy worth another $300,000. Ruth's daughter died last year from cancer, which meant everything would go to Marcus, but only after Ruth died. So, he decided to speed things up, Ethan said, his voice shaking with anger. Exactly. Marcus works as an orderly at Mercy General Hospital. He had access to Ruth's medical records, her room, everything. When Ruth was admitted 3 weeks ago for pneumonia, he saw his chance. Detective Parker pulled out another document. He contacted Donald Crane, who was drowning in gambling debts. Together, they hatched a plan. When Ruth was discharged from the hospital, Marcus picked her up. But instead of taking her home, he took her to the funeral home. Ethan felt sick, and they put her in the coffin. They drugged her first, just enough to make her sleepy and weak, but not enough to kill her. They wanted her death to look natural. They forged cremation paperwork, claiming she had died peacefully and been cremated. Then they planned to dump the coffin in the landfill, let nature take its course, and collect the insurance money. But she woke up, Ethan whispered. She woke up and started tapping. She fought back, Detective Parker said with a small smile. Ruth is tougher than they thought. The drugs wore off faster than expected. She heard them loading the coffin into a truck. She felt them dumping her. And she refused to give up. Ethan remembered Ruth's pale blue eyes looking at him, that tiny squeeze of her hand. She had been fighting the whole time. Fighting to live. Fighting to be heard. We arrested both men yesterday, the detective continued. Marcus Webb and Donald Crane are being charged with attempted murder, fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. They're looking at 20 to 30 years in prison. Good, Ethan said fiercely. They deserve it. Detective Parker closed the folder. Ruth wants to meet you. She's been asking about the man who saved her life. The hospital room was filled with flowers. Sunlight streamed through the windows, making everything bright and warm. It was so different from the dark coffin in the hot, smelly landfill. Ruth sat propped up in bed, wearing a clean hospital gown. Her white hair had been combed, and there was color in her cheeks now. She looked alive. Really alive. When she saw Ethan, her eyes filled with tears. You're him, she said, her voice weak but clear. You're the man who heard me. Ethan walked over and took her hand, just like he had in the landfill. I'm glad you're okay, Ruth. I heard your voice, she said. When I was in that dark place, I heard you talking about your daughter. About butterflies and strawberry ice cream. And you told me I mattered. Tears rolled down her wrinkled cheeks. Nobody had said that to me in so long. After my daughter died, I felt invisible. Like I didn't matter to anyone anymore. You matter, Ethan said firmly. You matter so much. Ruth squeezed his hand. Because of you, I get to see another sunrise. I get to eat chocolate again. I get to feed the birds in my garden. I get to live. She smiled through her tears. Thank you for not walking away. That night, Ethan tucked Lily into bed like he did every night. But tonight felt different. Everything felt different.
Daddy.
Lily asked, hugging her stuffed bunny. Why do you look so happy and sad at the same time? Ethan sat on the edge of her bed. I met someone this week. An old lady named Ruth. Is she nice? Very nice. But something bad happened to her. Some people tried to throw her away. Lily's eyes went wide. Throw her away? Like garbage. Yes, Ethan said softly. Like garbage. But I found her. And I saved her. Because people can't be thrown away, Lily said, remembering what her daddy had taught her. That's right, sweetheart. Ethan kissed her forehead. People throw away things that don't matter. Broken toys, old clothes, empty bottles. But people can never be thrown away. Every person matters. Every single one. Even when they're old, even when they're sick, even when they can't do all the things they used to do, they still matter. Lily thought about this for a moment. Daddy, you're a hero. Ethan shook his head.
No, baby.
I just did what anyone should do. I paid attention. I listened. And I didn't walk away when someone needed help. That's what heroes do, Lily insisted. Maybe she was right. The next week, the local news ran a story about Ethan. They called him the landfill hero and showed pictures of the coffin, the police investigation, and Ruth smiling in her hospital bed. Reporters asked Ethan for interviews. People stopped him on the street to shake his hand. The mayor even gave him an award for bravery and service to the community. But the moment that mattered most came 2 weeks later. Ruth was released from the hospital. She was going to live in a new place, a nice apartment building for seniors, where people would check on her every day, where she wouldn't be alone, where she would be safe. On her first day there, Ethan and Lily came to visit. They brought flowers and a box of chocolate. Ruth hugged them both, and this time her hug was strong. She wasn't weak anymore. She was alive and healthy and ready to start over. I'm planting a garden, she told them, pointing to a small balcony. Flowers for the butterflies. And I'm going to make sure there's always strawberry ice cream in my freezer. Lily giggled. For me? For you, Ruth said, tapping Lily's nose. You and your daddy can visit anytime. As they left that evening, Lily held her father's hand and looked up at him with shining eyes. Daddy, can I ask you something? Anything, sweetheart. When I grow up, can I be like you? Can I save people too? Ethan knelt down so he was eye level with his daughter. You don't have to wait until you grow up, Lily. You can start right now. Every time you see someone who's hurting, every time you notice someone who's alone, every time you choose to be kind instead of walking away, that's how you save people. By paying attention? By paying attention. By caring. By remembering that every person matters, no matter who they are, or where they come from, or how old they are. Lily nodded seriously. I'll remember, Daddy. I promise. And Ethan knew she would. Sometimes the most important moments in life happen in the most unexpected places. A landfill. A mountain of garbage. A place where people throw away what they don't want anymore. But on that burning hot Tuesday afternoon, in that terrible, smelly place, Ethan Cole proved something powerful. He proved that one person paying attention can change everything. He proved that listening matters. He proved that no human being, no matter how old, how sick, or how forgotten, should ever be treated like garbage. Ruth Hale got her second chance at life because one man refused to walk away. And maybe that's what heroes really are. Not people with capes or superpowers. Just ordinary people who notice when something is wrong and decide to do something about it. People who remember that every life has value. People who understand that some things can be thrown away, but people never should be. So, here's the question for you. If you were walking through your day and noticed something wasn't right, someone who needed help, someone who seemed forgotten, someone the world had overlooked, what would you do? Would you walk away? Or would you stop and listen? Because the world needs more people like Ethan. People who pay attention. People who care. People who refuse to let others be thrown away. If this story touched your heart, if it made you think about the people around you, if it reminded you that every person matters, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribe so you never miss another story that matters. Because stories like Ruth's and Ethan's aren't just stories. They're reminders of who we can choose to be every single day. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. And remember, nobody is garbage. Nobody.